My oldest son graduated from high school. I said, I have graduated too. He said, what do you mean? I said, I no longer am the laundry woman around this house. You know where the machine is, and you know how to put things in there and dry them. And I said, I'm finished. He said, well, what about ironing them? I said, I'll be glad to give you a lesson. He ended up taking his shirts to a laundromat, or a laundry, and having them do it. He said, it's better to pay somebody. Goodness, Mom. I said, you mean all these years I could have been collecting money and I didn't know? This morning, I want everybody here to be able to take something back with you. So this is not just for mothers. You see, we all had a mother, right? She didn't wash us away when we were totally dependent on her. She carried us for 9 months inside and a whole lot longer outside. She did training us, taking care of us, feeding us, all those things for a number of years. She taught us right from wrong. The beginning of our conscience was with our mother. So every one of us has a mother. Some of us have more than one mother. Some of us, our natural mother, we may not even know. And so we were raised by someone else, either adopted or fostered. So we've got a second or third or fourth mother sometimes in that process. Then a lot of us have a spiritual mother, someone who was instrumental in bringing us to know the Lord. She's also your mother. And then some have adopted mothers. We just go around and adopt women as mothers. And so I'm talking to everybody this morning. I didn't really think I was ever going to be a mother. I didn't even think I was going to get married. When I was in late childhood, I had something happen with a couple friends, and I was convinced I wasn't good enough to have a friend. So I went through my teenage years really very isolated. I'm intensely introverted to start with, and then add enough bad things happen, and I was really, really isolated. And then when I was in university, some boys played a trick on me that was they thought was intensely funny, but it was intensely embarrassing, and just finished off that what had been done to me as a 12-year-old. And I was convinced that there really wasn't any reason for me to live. And I was planning on committing suicide. And I tell this story because I think there are moms that know that their daughters or their sons have an intensely difficult thing going on in their life. They see things about them that don't add up. They're concerned about them. And a lot of times, as children, as teenagers, we won't listen to our mother. We don't want to hear her. We don't want her telling us what should be right, or what we should think, how we should feel. And I was like that. I was a stubborn teenager, and I didn't want to listen to my mom. During my childhood, until I was 14, my mother was not born again. We attended a Methodist church, but it was merely, we called it, after we were saved, we said it was more like a country club than it was a church. I really didn't meet Jesus there. I didn't know him. and didn't seem that anybody else in the church knew him either. And through my mom's illness, we came, and God's touch on her life, her healing, her salvation, we came to know the Lord. So at 14, we began to have a Christian home, but there was a lot I didn't understand, and I didn't have another classmate. There was no Sunday school for me to go to or whatever to learn about Jesus. So I did it just hearing my parents and reading the Bible myself, which didn't make a whole lot of sense in those early years. So I continued on with my really stubborn attitudes about my mom, not really liking her too much. And so then when this event happened, when I was like 22 years old, 23 years old, I just figured I had no help. There was no help. I was a Christian, but I didn't see any help for it. So I was going to commit suicide. And I was, being a nurse, I took what we call the PDF. It describes all the different medications, and I was sitting on my bed trying to determine which medicine I could take that would kill me the easiest and quickest and leave the least mess for my family to clean up. The strange ways we think. Oh my. But I had refused dinner that night. And so about 8 o'clock, my mom came and knocked on my door. And I said, yeah. And she said, can I come in? And I thought about it for a few minutes. I said, okay, come on in. I figured, what difference did it make? I wasn't going to have to listen to her very much longer anyway. So she came in, and she brought my dad with her. And she said, Diane, I know there's something wrong. I don't know what it is, but will you let me pray for you? So again, I thought, okay, what difference does it make? So she started to pray, and as she did, God gave her a word of wisdom, word of knowledge. And she named something that had happened when I was 12 years old, and she asked me about the person involved. And I said I didn't remember her. I didn't know who she was talking about. And through that evening, the prayer that they prayed and the ministry that they did with me and their intense love for me finally broke through that wall, and I finally found a way to forgive the people that had hurt me, and that started me on the path of healing. A lot of times the point where we change the most is just a point in our life, but in order for it to really take effect and to change our lives, it takes a long time. It's a process. Things have to happen over a period of time, and that's what happened with me. And so I began thinking, well, maybe I could get married. So I started praying for the man I would marry, even though I had no idea who he was or where he was. And Mike came along, and we were getting ready to get married, and I thought I really ought to go to a doctor and be examined first and just make sure everything was okay. And the doctor told me, he said, I don't think you're going to be able to have children. He said, you've got two different conditions, one that will make it extremely hard for you to ever conceive, and the other one, very hard or impossible for you to carry a baby to full term. So he said, just try when you're ready, but he said, there's not much chance that you're going to have a baby. And I felt like I had to tell Mike. I felt like it would be defrauding him to know this before I got married and not tell him. And I told him, and he said, well, that's okay, we can adopt. I said, okay. I didn't expect that response. And he said, well, I was adopted. And that was something I didn't know at that point. So you know, the idea was birthed in my heart that, well, maybe I could have a child after all. And then I got pregnant, and quickly miscarried. And so I was convinced what the doctor said was really what was going to happen. And again, was prayed for by some folks that didn't even know me and felt like they had a word from God that said I was going to get pregnant. And I did, and about a year later, like so often happened in the Bible with barren women, they were told that they were going to have a child, and about a year later they had a child. I had 2 sons, and I thought, I was convinced the first one was a girl, and he turned out to be a boy. Oh, well, it's nice to have an older brother, you know. So I thought, this is good. When we had our second one, I was totally convinced it had to be a girl. I mean, I had been raised with girls. Surely I'd have a girl, you know. I had 2 boys. So I thought, well, I'll eventually get daughters-in-law. And I got 2 daughters-in-law, and neither of one of them are very girly girls. They don't really want a mom. They're very off on their own. So I was saying, God, this isn't fair. It's just not fair. All these other women have daughters, and they get to do things with daughters, and I don't. And over our years here in Malaysia, God has given me some really special daughters. I was taken out to dinner yesterday, both my husband and I, by one of them. We had a delightful time. God is so good. He gives us the desires of our heart. No matter where you are in that process, God can meet you. God can comfort you. God can give you what you need. And every woman in this room has the opportunity to at least be spiritual mom to somebody. You have a responsibility, even if you don't have a child of your own, to find one and be a mom to that son or daughter. Our children, this part is specifically for moms. Think about it, no matter which level you're at. There are some things here for you that I believe God would like you to know this morning. Our children don't just happen. They're God's gift to us. He gives us a child for us to be the caretaker of. They're not for us to hold to ourselves forever and ever. They're for us to take care of for Him and to raise and to love. And they're a gift. There are times I wanted to give my gifts back. I have had enough of this one. Can I have a different one? I told my oldest son at one time, he and I were the ones who knocked heads. You know, there's always one of your children, it seems, that is a little bit harder for you to raise than the other ones. And he was for me, because the 2 of us are very much alike. And so I knew what he was thinking, and it would make me so mad. Anyway, there were times when he was growing up and he was pushing the limits, like I had done with my mom. He was pushing the limits. And one day he was being particularly annoying, and I said, Michael, do you know I love you? And he said, yes. And I said, I do love you, but I don't like you very much right now. I think God laughed at it too. He didn't mind. But we are stewards of our children. We're there to take care of them. Your child, no matter what, is not perfect. We all want a perfect child, don't we? And we all want to raise perfect children, and we want them to be perfect all the way through school. Forget it. They're either a son of Adam or a daughter of Eve, and they will not be perfect. God doesn't expect you to be perfect either. He knows better. He knows that we can't do it perfectly, but He's given us things that we can do about that. We can ask for His wisdom. We don't have to do it all on our own. We don't have to try and figure it out. My mom, no matter how much she fought and worried and fretted and prayed and cried over this daughter that was so stubborn and so isolated, she couldn't do anything to change me. But she could pray, and she could ask for wisdom, and at the right time, God gave her the word that was needed. So you may have to wait a long time. What you are praying for, what your failures, when you feel like, oh, I must have caused the trouble. If you did something wrong, you need to make it right. You need to do what you can to make it right. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But give yourself permission to do your best, not be perfect. You don't have to be perfect. You do not know who you are raising. You may be raising the discoverer of the prevention of cancer. You might be raising the Nobel Peace Prize winner. You may be raising the one who wins souls in the last tribe to be touched before Jesus returns. You don't know, so you do your best, and you prepare them the best you know how. Listen to your children when they talk to you. And it's not always easy. I was talking to someone here before the service about my granddaughter. She's 7 now, but she was 6 at the time, and she arranged to have a Skype call with Grammy and Papa. She asked her dad to make the arrangements, so we got on Skype. She would not let her brother talk to us. It was her Skype call with us. And this little girl talked nonstop for a whole hour. We barely said a word the whole time, except occasionally to ask her to repeat something because we couldn't understand her. She was talking so fast. But we listened to her. Listening to your kids is so important. If you don't listen when they're younger, they won't listen to you when they're older. It's important to listen to them. Spend as much time as you can with your children. I know you're living in the Klang Valley. I know there's not enough time to go around. But whatever you do, make time. Spend time with your kids. Find ways to engage them. Be there when they're crying. Be there when they're excited and happy about something. Don't be so busy that you miss their growing up. It's so important. And then when they're teenagers, you think, hey, now they're a teenager. We get to sleep at night. Forget it. If you haven't gotten there yet, get your sleep now while they're still school age, because once they become teenagers, their clock gets turned upside down, and they're awake at night and they're asleep during the day. But stay up when your teens want to talk to you. Listening to them at that point, you may say something that completely changes the direction of their life. Very important. Make memories with your children. Read Bible stories together. Pray with them. Let them experience God answering prayers that they pray for the family. Don't just you do all the praying. Get them to pray. Teach them. Spend time with them. Don't count on holidays being the answer to your time together with them. Holidays are nice, but they're just every so often. And some of you take your kids on really nice holidays. They have a whole week or something, and you go to China or you go someplace else. This is wonderful, but that doesn't make up for evenings when they desperately want somebody to talk to, or when they needed you to just say the right word at the right time. So make memories, but space it out. Don't just wait for holidays. And release them to God's will for their lives. Give up your own agenda. And I know it's hard, because we all want the very best for our kids. We want them to earn really good money so they can do whatever they want to in life, and help take care of us when we get old, you know. We have all these aspirations. I mean, but they can't all be doctors and lawyers and accountants. There are young people growing up in this church that should be missionaries to some other place. You have passports that allow you to go to countries that I'll never be allowed in. You've got children that should be the next pastor, this church, some other church. Those children are growing up right now, or they're in their teens, or they're starting their careers. Don't hold your child back from something that God wants for them just because it doesn't meet your criteria. Lay down your agenda. Cheer them on. What is the thing that lights them up? You know, you can watch your children and see there are certain things that they're interested in, and they are so excited about it. Encourage it. Cheer them on. Help them to do their very best in whatever that is. And you release them little by little. You don't just one day shove them out the door. You know, it's a giving up little by little. We start when we put them in kindy. You know, it's early on we start giving up our children, but let them go little by little. You take less control over your children and much more influence. And that's the way God wants it. That's how we really help our kids grow. Okay, what if you did it wrong? You know, there are those of us in this room that know that there are things that we did really wrong. We train for years and years for our profession and get almost no teaching on how to be a parent. So we're all bound to make mistakes. First of all, confess whatever it is to your Heavenly Father. When we do something wrong, I don't care who it's to, what it's about, talk to God about it first. Run to Him. He's the one to talk to first. He promises He'll forgive us. And He will help us to change if we open our lives to Him. Then if you know that you've done something to your child or said something that has been hurtful, confess it to your child. I know this goes totally against faith, I know, but this is God's way. Faith is your culture. Confession and forgiveness is your Christian heritage, and that's what we should be paying attention to. If you tell a little child, there were times when I disciplined the wrong one of my boys. I did. I thought it was one kid's fault and it really was the other one. Do I just say, oh, well, that's for the times that I didn't catch you doing something wrong? No, you say, I'm sorry. I didn't understand. Children are so receptive to that. They forgive you so quickly. And 9 times out of 10, they'll say something, well, I know, but you didn't catch me other times, so it's okay. There's that. There's our children, besides forgiving us quickly, it's the best way to teach your children how to confess and get forgiveness. If you want your children to be able to do what is fundamental in our Christian faith.